Hello, and welcome to KPFA's debate series for the 2021 Local Board Delegate Elections, where we will hear from various listener candidates. I am Sherry Smith. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville, a neutral third party for this debate, and I'm the moderator for this program. The topics to be discussed cover key topics facing KPFA and the Pacifica Foundation as a whole, and questions submitted directly by KPFA members. Please note that all viewpoints presented are those of the participants and do not reflect the position of the Pacifica Foundation or KPFA. The program starts with opening statements, followed by a debate covering topics selected from a predefined topic list and ending with questions from listener members. The order of candidates and topics has been selected by using a random sequence generator from random.org. This hour, we are joined by James Mcfadden, Vicente Cruz, Carlos Kohan, Daniel Borgstrom, Fred Cook, and Fred Dodsworth. Before starting the debate, each candidate has 1 minute to make an opening statement. Candidates will hear a bell when their time is up. And now for those candidates' opening statements. The first will be James Mcfadden. You have 1 minute.
Hello, I'm a research physicist at UC Berkeley and a current member of the KPFA LSB. I'm also a member of an affinity group called Rescue Pacifica, whose vision for Pacifica is outlined on their website, rescuepacifica.net. My primary interests are keeping KPFA corporate free, improving programming, and bringing some sanity to the LSB. I also believe that volunteer work, showing up for civic meetings, is critical to the health of the community, and I'm involved in half a dozen local and national political groups fighting oppression and corporate power. As an avid listener, I feel KPFA is one of the Bay Area gems, especially with shows like Flashpoints, Hard Knock Radio, and Project Censored. However, I also see room for improvement in a changing media environment that needs to serve a younger, more diverse demographic to remain viable. For a summary of problems at KPFA that I'd like to address, please check out my Counterpunch article. Just Google Counterpunch James Mcfadden. Thank you.
Thank you, James Mcfadden. Vicente Cruz, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Vicente Cruz, and I do wish for your vote for KPFA Localization Board. And I am a event production manager, which is just a fancy word for theater technician for stagehand. So I have technical experience. And what I got into the candidate race for was after going to many meetings in the past and then currently virtually. It is sorely needed some nonviolent communication along the board. And I really think that I can bring that, having also been a youth sports educator within Oakland OUSD for 4 years. So I definitely know how to run a playground. I also think that I would love to see us take a more radical approach to making KPFA sustainable, also keeping it corporate free. I am the event and fundraising coordinator also for the Oakland Green Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos Kohan, you have 1 minute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Carlos Kohan, and I have been a loyal listener and member of KPFA for over 30 years. At a time when fascist groups seem to be growing in the US and there seems to be much confusion in the population, due in good part to propaganda and misinformation from mainstream and right-wing media channels, I strongly believe that the Pacifica Network stands as one of the few channels for truth, independent and progressive analysis, anti-racist voices, and mental and spiritual health. I want this network to end its internal dysfunction, expand, and be a strong independent voice for progressive critical analysis throughout the country. I respectfully ask for your vote for me, as well as for all the candidates on the KPFA Protector slate. please go to kpfaprotectorsoneword.org and you will get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel Borgstrom, you have a minute.
Hello, I'm Daniel Borgstrom. At 18, I joined the U.S. Marine Corps. People ask me why. I tell them, where I grew up, there was no KPFA. There was a constant drumbeat of security state propaganda. Today, we have the station and our Pacifica network, our anti-war voice on the air. We'll have it only as long as we defend it against Pacifica bashers who for years have disparaged the network, planning, often overtly, to appeal to donors who fancy so-called humanitarian interventions. Meanwhile, listeners leave KPFA and go to websites that do challenge these plutocrat-serving narratives. I'm with Rescue Pacifica, working to keep Pacifica intact and preserve our anti-war voice. Please vote for them.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 1 minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a long-time Pacifica listener. I listened in Los Angeles to KPFK. I listened in Fresno to KFCF, and I have listened to KPFA. It's a touchstone in my life. It's very important to me. I'm currently, at least nominally, serving on the Community Advisory Board, and it disturbs me that the Community Advisory Board has not been meeting, at least by Zoom. So I'm running for the local station board. The kinds of things that I want to bring to the table are the idea of respectful communication, not only within our organization, but as our stance on air. So I believe it's possible for people from very diverse communities, very diverse politics, to have their authentic voice, but be respectful.
Thank you very much. Next is Fred Dodsworth. You have a minute.
Hello, my name is Fred Dodsworth, and I've been active in local politics for the last 40 years. I've been a KPFA listener off and on and supporter off and on for that same period of time. I'm on the Berkeley Citizens Action Steering Committee. I'm a member of BTU, Berkeley Tenant Union. I work with the tenants together, Casa Unidas, and anti-racism groups. I am a 30-year journalist. I have published and edited magazines, both local and national, and I am strongly in belief of the importance of Pacifica being a voice alternative to the corporate media. I have run businesses, I have run news programs. I believe that it is critical that we give our news programs the freedom to do the work that they have to do. I've watched Pacifica flounder for more than 20 years. 20 years ago, I wrote an article about this problem. I'm joining now to seek a solution, a chance to actually make a difference and to save this critical radio station.
Thank you, Fred. We now move on to the debate. The debate format consists of assigning one topic to one candidate as determined by the initial random sequence and allowing that candidate 2 minutes to develop their answer. All other candidates, following the order defined by the initial random sequence, get 30 seconds each to comment or ask a follow-up question. This structure iterates through all candidates until all have had the opportunity to address a topic in depth. James, the first topic is to you. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the existing models of fundraising at KPFA and Pacifica? Please propose alternative fundraising ideas and models. What strategy and timeline would be needed to implement your alternatives? You have 2 minutes.
KPFA board members, staff, and volunteers really need to be present at Bay Area events with banners, literature, and microphones recruiting members. I think this has been lacking. It's been partly lacking because of COVID, but been lacking because we haven't had the initiative. Political events should be covered live, including interviews with participants, so that the plethora of Bay Area organizations can symbiotically work with KPFA to enhance each other's impacts on the community. I also think KPFA should work with the cities and community leaders to sponsor KPFA Day events with music and interviews. KPFA needs to develop a website with the best of its historical programming that includes a tip jar for those who want to listen, and make it easy, make it easy to locate those things. And I think KPFA relies too heavily on standard airtime solicitations during fundraising drives, where staff beg for donations, which can often cause listeners to flip to other stations. I would much rather see a short pitch for donations at the end of each show that runs year round, and shorter fund drives. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Vicente, you have 30 seconds.
Well, only thing I could say is really wanted to hear direct answers. And the strengths, of course, would be if you're going to, which seems to be the two sides, if you're going to appeal to large Democratic donors, well, you have to feel that they're going to want to pay for play, but it is nice to have those large donations. Whereas the other side, really just going for a larger listenership, which I agree with James on that, and giving smaller donations, but from a larger audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 30 seconds.
I agree with many of the points that James made. I think this is an area where we can all really, truly work together, regardless of our thinking on other topics. I think we all want KPFA to be strong and raise more funds. I'll dedicate more to this topic on my 2 minutes.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, I would like to concentrate on small donors. If we could have widen our listenership and get a lot of small donors, that would be the ideal. Now, I'm not exactly against big donors. I'm not, but I want to caution that if we have big donors can have different viewpoints, can influence the station in their direction, which may not be what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. As a member of the International Association of Stage Theater Employees, I arranged for our local to give a $500 donation to KPFA. I think that's a model. And I think that large donors, and that's not really a large donor, but large donors should be limited to a certain percentage so that we're not dependent on any one or any coalition. I think choosing donors who are fully in alignment with KPFA's mission and respect.
Thank you, Fred. Fred Dodsworth, you have 30 seconds.
This is an income problem. The other half of this equation is the expense problem. Making the various stations accountable and responsible economically for their expenses is critical, and we have failed to do that for 20 years. We need to change how we spend our money. We also need to change how we get our donors. We need to look at online as well as on air programs. We need to get the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to re-up their old donations.
Thank you, Fred. We move on to the next topic. Vicente, this is your topic. What is your understanding of the role that unpaid staff play at KPFA? How do you think they should be represented? You have 2 minutes.
Well, the role they play as many times as entertainment uses, or entertainment as a broad sense uses internships, actually they do most of the grunt work. I myself have been an intern, again, as being a stagehand myself, and I heard somebody else go IATSE. And so it's really important to have that base, because also those volunteers are also the ones that go out. I mean, because they're doing it out of love, they're going out and actually spreading the word to other people. And then that increases your listenership, that increases your volunteers for the future. And right now, too, some of the best programming and probably some of the most radical programming that we have on KPFA is specifically done by unpaid staff. Or maybe even the fact that if, again, changing it from staff. Staff really seems like they should have some sort of compensation, maybe changing that name. But that is how I feel their role is. And I think we should actually increase that. Again, I want to kind of broaden the programming to be more radical and see KPFA be that radical voice that will actually get people engaged, right? One of the reasons we have such a problem is we don't have engagement. People are so, how we say it, just have enough energy to get a little breath, and then you sink halfway down, and then right before you're about to die, you go back up to the top and get another breath. So it's hard for them. We have to fight which has been said by all the candidates so far, a propaganda system in corporate media that has been around forever and has people caring more about likes and voting for who's dancing with the stars rather than who's going to be their representative or who's going to be their community radio station that'll be bringing the news and music and getting that radical voice out to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 30 seconds.
Well, essentially, my understanding is that KPFA has an amazing group of volunteers, around 200 people, that they work in day and night. They work in operations, in production. I think we need to support it. I think the LSB needs to support the volunteers. And related to the previous question and this one, the LSB needs to do more outreach, contact more nonprofits and bring them in, and that way we'll get more interest and more volunteers also.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, I believe the unpaid staff produce something where between 70 and 80% of the programming. That means, quite simply, they're very valuable, need to be treated with respect. We have a problem that the paid staff are represented by a union. The unpaid staff are not represented by a union. They seem to have very little power.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
I'm a member of National Association of Broadcast Employees and Technicians, and I've begun discussions with the leadership about representing unpaid staff. Don't know where that's going to go, but I think something like that is needed. If not that, then an association that is tracked to people's volunteer hours and commitment. So we need responsiveness from the station manager and from the programmers to include more volunteers into all of the programs.
Thank you, Fred. Fred Dodsworth, you have 30 seconds.
Our volunteer staff are a critical component of our mix. They are the demographic connections that we need to take advantage of. And we offer them experience that can turn into professional jobs. That's great. But what people need to understand is on-air talent is different than news. And on-air talent, frankly, in most radio stations does not get paid well. My brother was in that radio station, top rated, and he got paid $18,000 a year. This is not a great path toward buying a home in Berkeley.
Thank you, Fred. James, you have 30 seconds.
Sounds like we're all in agreement. Unpaid staff are central to community radio. And as Daniel said, 75% of the programming, something like that, comes from unpaid staff. So unpaid staff is really as important as paid staff. And I think their voting rights should remain as part of the staff class in elections. And I think that's critical. We must remember that Pacifica is a collaboration between donors and staff, paid and unpaid, that perform this service that really benefits the community. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We move on to the next topic. Carlos, this is your topic. In your opinion, what is the most important role or responsibility that the local station board has? And how should roles or responsibilities be modified to improve the function of the local station board? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. To me, the local station board's primary function should be outreach and community engagement, number one. Number two, fundraising. That means helping the station do fundraising in the community. And number three, support and give all the help we can give to the actual staff of the station. So I'm going to go into each one. Outreach and community engagement. I wrote some time ago a 5-page letter to KPFA 2 years ago on fundraising, different ideas on how to do this. This is what the local station board should be helping with, connecting with progressive nonprofit organizations. I am convinced that if we connect with them and they have a way to promote to at least interview them, promote their ideas, their members will become more interested in KPFA also. This is a win-win to me. And ideas like that, like I said, it's too long now to go into it, but I wrote like a 5-page paper that I sent to KPFA and I hope to bring to the LSB. So this is related to both outreach, community engagement, and fundraising. And in terms of supporting the staff, I took the news department training and I could see how thin they run and how many resources they need. So all we can do to bring more volunteers, to help them out, to support them, I think we should do that, definitely. We should also interface with the other local station boards and Pacifica. I know there's been a tremendous dysfunction. We should terminate that, open up, and help each other in any way we can.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, the LSB is basically there to oversee the workings of the station. That includes a number of jobs to evaluate the station manager, the GM, once a year, I believe. That hasn't happened for about 5 years, but we need to do it every year. And then we also have a role in programming to work with the station manager on programming, and can do that through setting up a program console.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Picking up on that, I agree about the program council. I have wanted to do more work with the local station board. I think we need a shift, and I'm not sure where it has to happen, but we need for the station manager to meet with the local station board at least quarterly. And I think having a commitment to respectful communication could make that easier. I think that outreach is also important, and involving people, like training local volunteers how to do the production.
Thank you. Fred Dodsworth, you have 30 seconds.
There are approximately 8 million people in the broadcast zone that KPFA currently covers, and we have 14,000 listeners. Clearly, we can't represent the Greater Bay Area, and we need to deal with that issue clearly. Most importantly, we need to get KPFA and Pacifica on a firm financial footing. If we don't do that, then we're not going to have a station to maintain and to grow. That's the most critical thing that we need to do now. I don't think that we have any role in programming.
Thank you, Fred. James, you have 30 seconds.
The LSB's primary responsibilities are outlined in the bylaws. We approve budgets, screen the general manager and PD candidates, do yearly evaluations, make sure programming fulfills its purpose. The general problem I've seen in the last 2.5 years that I've been on the board is that the majority faction on the board is actively block actions on these responsibilities. And it kind of reflects their desire to do away with the LSBs entirely. So I'm in favor of the LSB doing what it's been asked to do in the bylaws.
Thank you, James. Vicente, you have 30 seconds.
Yes. So we've heard a lot of great things of what the role should be. One of those should be programming. Right now, though, the role seems to be just fighting amongst themselves. Again, I've mentioned in my opening statement, I've gone to these virtual meetings and the name calling, the way you would never talk to anyone that way on the block. That's how I put it. And if we don't get that fixed, we can't get along with anything. We will not be able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to the next topic. Daniel, this is your topic. Please define listener democracy. What is your view on listener democracy? Do you feel that this is happening at KPFA and Pacifica? How can we improve listener democracy? You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Listener democracy was instituted at Pacifica after 1999, after a huge fight. That was a result of a huge fight. People vote for, people elect their local station boards, which I think is a good idea. I think that's the way it should be. There have been limitations, there have been problems with our listener democracy, problems that some people don't like it. Some people have been sabotaging it. And the question is how to get them to stop sabotaging it. Well, I don't have a simple answer to that. But I think in short, we need to do this, and we need to, do I still have more time? Excuse me. And we need to, excuse me, I'm hearing another voice. Am I cut off or what?
No, you're doing fine. You have some background in your own place, I think.
I don't think it's in my place, but anyway, the other thing is, I think, and it's important that elections be broadcast on KPFA, election news of KPFA elections. Now, they broadcast national elections. They consider that entertaining. I think that our elections are just as entertaining. They certainly can be. They're exciting. There's a lot, and they do not get the proper, they do not get anywhere near the needed coverage. The needed carts need to be broadcast often. They seldom are in many elections. That's what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
So I think that respect and not having name calling, like having that be verboten, is good. We need representative democracy. And so that means not having the local station boards sending their representatives. It means having the membership, volunteers, paid members elect representatives at large for the national board. It's going to require a change, but proportional representation.
Thank you, Fred. Fred Dodsworth, you have 30 seconds.
I think that we actually need to incorporate non-paid members as well. We need to grow our membership. I think that democracy is for all of the people. I don't actually think it should be broadcast. I think that we need to deal with this internally. I think I've sit on many boards, and if people start calling each other names on the boards that I sit on, I will not tolerate it. I will excise those things from the minutes, and I will ask that those people please treat each other with respect. And if not, then I'll try to get the entire organization to make them comply with normal human dignity.
Thank you, Fred. James, you have 30 seconds.
Listener democracy means that listener members have a voice in the operations of the local station and network. And I think bringing back a programming council will improve listener democracy. Those that claim that we need to professionalize Pacifica are advocating for a corporate top-down hierarchical model, which is anti-democratic. I think this is an elitist position rooted in paternalistic and patriarchal models of business. And I believe in community radio with local control that enhances listener democracy.
Thank you, James. Vicente, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I believe that, or should I say, I disagree with the idea of excising anything from minutes, and I think we should be more transparent, just be about it. I think that would also help with members holding us accountable for not name calling. And I also would agree with Fred Cook that having the listeners vote even for the national boards as all of the Pacifica Station members vote for the national board as well and be more open to democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I profoundly believe in democracy, in proportional representation. What we have today in Pacifica is not democracy. It's a bit like the US Senate. Each station selects 4 members to the Pacifica board. I did the numbers. I have a background in engineering. 40% of the membership today could control the Pacifica board forever and deny representation to the other 60%. For example, in the recent vote for referendum, 1,400 members voted for yes, and the board doesn't want to change because 70-something staff didn't vote for it. That's not a democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. We move on to the next topic. Fred Cook, this is your topic. What are the strengths and weaknesses of KPFA's programming? And should local station board members be involved in determining programming? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I am very pleased with most of what the KPFA unpaid staff and paid staff produce as programming. Bottom line, I think it's outstanding. The challenge that I see is in how to have authentic voices from diverse communities all represented there. People who totally disagree with each other, but have what anybody says on KPFA's airwaves be said with respect so that it can be inclusive of a large and diverse audience. How to ensure this, I think, includes articulating program standards, training, feedback. And I believe that we do, as local station board, have a role in programming. I think that some of that can be delegated to a program council, and that program council can interface with community organizations that are aligned with us and providing support and providing volunteers. I think that we also need to work more with new media. So in our pandemic response, we've decentralized production and created hubs of production in staff members' homes. I think we can provide training to community groups and community volunteers so that they also can be production hubs. Decentralized, we could triple the amount of production going on with affordable tools that people can get their hands on. I think that's probably enough. There's a lot more.
Thank you, Fred. Fred Dodsworth, you have 30 seconds.
I think that we actually need a large community of people to be involved in this program group that we're talking about, much, much larger than the LSB. I think that it is important that the LSB reach out and get more people involved in the community. We also need to get the program manager and the general manager to reach out, and we need to pitch our listeners. We need to set up an actual organization that gives feedback, but they cannot be making decisions. That has to be made by a program director and a general manager.
Thank you, Fred. James, you have 30 seconds.
And the programming strengths are those that are not found elsewhere in the media. Shows like Flashpoints, Hard Knock Radio, and Project Censored. As far as weaknesses go, I have to say I think the morning news has gotten a bit stale. It sounds a little bit too much like NPR and often fails to tackle those topics censored by mainstream media. Attacks on Julian Assange are an example. It's very rare that you hear Julian Assange discussed, and also just addressing the US corporate empire and capitalism and the role they play in climate change and global poverty.
Thank you, James. Vicente, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, the local station boards should have a role programming. Yes, it should be through the program council, and those councils should go out and join not just to members, but just to the general public and see what they would like. And then that should shape what we bring back to the local station board and the program manager for what should be there. Biggest example is Sideshow Radio. Actually used to be bumped like right at sideshows, and they would talk about not drinking and curbing the violence. Not having that voice has seen an escalation in violence in those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. To me, programming should be decided on the basis of the large audience and not a few people at the LSB. I would agree with the program council as long as it is an advisory role, and what they do is they go out to the community and get polls and get input. The problem with the program council that is executive is that it could turn the whole thing into crony programming. And then we have these feuds that have people, all right, I'm done. This is a very important topic. We should give it more time.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel, you have 30 seconds.
Yes. Some years ago, I think it's over a decade ago now, we did have a program council for some time. And there were problems with it, but it basically worked. It did evaluate programs. It did bring programs that were on the air and also brought on new programs. I think it's very important that we have a program council. Now, as far as current programs, I think we do have some. Okay.
Sorry, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Daniel. We move on to the final topic. Fred Dodsworth, this is your topic. What is your understanding of the financial problems of KPFA and those of Pacifica as a whole? How do you propose to resolve these problems? You have 2 minutes.
I have run businesses that have generated enormous sums of money, and you have to be accountable. You have to look at your divisions. You have to make sure that they're sustaining, and you have to make sure that they don't bring down the entire organization. That is critical, and the only way to do that is to actually put in place requirements that there's only a small amount of time that we will carry dead wood, and that if particular stations have to cut their expenses, they have to do that. That's why they have a general manager. That's why they have a program manager. That's why they have an LSB. It is critical that we cannot allow one station or two stations to kill our entire network. I am deeply, deeply disturbed by the fact that we have had to sell incredibly valuable assets to keep afloat organizations in the Pacifica network that are not reaching their community, that are not doing the good work, that are not doing the important work that we have to do for all of us, for America, for equality, for a better world. We are facing so many crises these days, and we're not addressing them. And corporate America is not going to address them. But Pacifica and KPFA have the possibility, they have the potential to be an incredible voice for change in our country, dealing with these really, really critical problems, and we are not doing it. And we cannot allow one or two stations to drag us into the cesspool. We have to be cognizant of our responsibilities, and we have to build this network, not drain it. Thank you.
James, you have 30 seconds.
Excuse me. The donor base is shrinking and bequests are not predictable. Therefore, KPFA must modify its programming business model to attract new listener donors in order to remain viable long-term. This will require cooperation between management, the local station board, and the community. At the national levels, changes have to be forced on stations to live within their means. We need to change LSB leadership that eliminates those who have continued to fight for control for decades, a terrible distraction, and instead bring in fresh faces who are not entrenched in the old battles.
Thank you, James. Vicente, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, it's the same thing that we do all want KPFA to be sustainable, and the only way to do that, I believe, is to expand the donor base, and you can do that through programming. I was actually talking to myself while I was muted while the others were talking that easily 80% of the programs that actually brought me to KPFA are no longer on, and the reason they brought me here was because they were so radical. As an anarchist, it was very important to me to have that radical change voice, and it seems like we're shrinking that, and our membership is showing. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm going to echo Fred Dodsworth. I'm very, very stressed and concerned about Pacifica financials. The network is losing money. The majority of the stations are losing money. We are losing audience. Pacifica has failed every audit since 2015. We lost almost $7 million from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Something has to change. And I agree with Fred. Those stations that cannot carry their own waters, they need to change. But KPFA is the station that's doing the best right now.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
That was not Daniel.
No, that was me, Carlos.
I'm sorry.
That's all
Oh
right.
my goodness. You get muted and you get all rattled too.
Right.
Daniel, you have 30
So
seconds. Is that right?
Yeah.
Who?
Sorry.
Me?
Daniel.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yes. My apologies.
KPFA may be doing the best, but it's not a very good best. I think it's still pretty close to the cliff. I've been watching this station for like 15 years. Years ago, it was warned that KPFA was living beyond its means, burning through reserves, and I don't see that changing. I see a lot of hiring going on. I don't know, I can't find out, the details of it. I think, okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have 30 seconds.
I think we need to think about sustainability and shifting more toward volunteer production, making it decentralized, cutting staff if necessary. I think we also need to really study what works and look not only at the Bay Area market, but look at other markets. What are the programs that are bringing in, expanding their audience, and summarize that and make that training available in all the different locations, even if there's no paid staff in that area.
Thank you. Have we made it through all of the Freds? Thank you very much. Okay, that does it for our debate questions. Each candidate now has 1 minute to make a closing statement. James, you have the first minute.
Hi, I'm James Mcfadden, a current member of the KPFA LSB. I'm also a member of an affinity group called Rescue Pacifica, whose vision for Pacifica is outlined on their website, rescuepacifica.net. My primary interests are keeping KPFA corporate free, improving programming, and bringing some sanity to the LSB. I see room for improvement in a changing media environment that needs to serve a younger, more diverse demographic to remain viable. For a summary of the problems at KPFA, please check out my Counterpunch article. You can get it by just Googling Counterpunch and James Mcfadden. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicente, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, members are going to have choices to make. I'm wishing for your vote. Again, I am an anarchist, stagehand, former youth sports educator that took a Juan Carlos and Tommy Smith approach when I dealt with my students, and which was probably the biggest thing that I've done, that the 85 kids that went through my program and went through my sports teams have not ended up in jail or dead and know how to interact with the police. If I am elected, I will bring nonviolent communication to the board for sure. I've done it in current meetings, even though they say you're not supposed to be in chat, but I do it anyway. Yeah, imagine that from an anarchist. So I hope for your vote. Enjoy it. And if you do vote for me, I will also be a representative of the people and be out there talking to you to see what really will, even if you're just a listener and not a subscriber, what we can do to make the radio station better for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicente. Carlos, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, as I stated at the beginning in my introduction, I truly want this network to end its internal dysfunction, stay corporate free, expand, and be a strong independent voice for progressive critical analysis, not only in the Bay Area, but throughout the country. I respectfully ask for your vote for me and for all the slate of the KPFA protectors. So if you want to, this is a very short time for a debate. So if you want to hear more, read more information, please go to kpfaprotectors.org. KPFA Protectors, one word. I wish we had more time. I could see some of the dysfunction and accusations already here. And I think we are not listening to each other, opening our hearts and working more closely together to resolve the real problems that the Pacifica network is facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Daniel, you have a minute.
Yes, Daniel here. I'm with Rescue Pacifica, and we're working to keep Pacifica the Pacifica network intact and preserve the anti-war voice. I'm asking you to vote for Rescue Pacifica, and I'm running as and also visit rescuepacifica.net. I want to say that from my military experience, I took away how important it is to be anti-war. And I am concerned about the anti-war voice of this station, that we want to keep it that way. And that, of course, means keeping it corporate free at the same time. I mean, if it gets handed over to the corporations, or corporations get too much control over it, that will be the end of our anti-war voice.
Thank you, Daniel. Fred Cook, you have a minute.
Thank you. I'd like to build on what Daniel said. Anti-war, when we track it down, means anti-imperial, because imperialism brings wars inevitably. So we have to be able to speak respectfully to a broad audience. We need to be speaking to people who are not yet listeners. And as part of a local station board, a community advisory board, I want to not only be listening to subscribers and volunteers and listeners, but also the people who should be listeners. Our demographics are much broader than our actual audience is now. Progressive critical analysis is vital, and we're one of the few places to get it on the dial. I think we need to be using new media and including younger audiences with their aesthetics.
Thank you, Fred. Fred Dodsworth, you have a minute.
Okay, I am not an anarchist. I believe that we actually have to look at our balance sheets and we have to live within our means. I am completely anti-war and have been for 50 years. I am also an anti-imperialist. I am also highly regarded for highly supportive of regulated capitalism. We need to get the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to give us back some of the tax money that we are owed. And we need to do that by being professional. I am a member of the KPFA protectors.org. I was asked to join them and I have joined them. I believe that having watched this now for 20 years, we need to bring civility and amiability to Pacifica and to the LSB. I will come with an open mind and open ears and hear what you have to say, because that's the only way that we're going to save KPFA.
Thank you, Fred. Have all been heard? Then I get to proceed. Thank you for listening to KPFA's debate series for the 2021 Local Board Delegate Election. My name is Sherry Smith, the moderator for the program, and we were joined by James Mcfadden, Vicente Cruz, Carlos Kohan, Daniel Borgstrom, Fred Cook, and Fred Dodsworth. Visit elections.pacifica.org for all questions and to file a ballot request form. Make sure you cast your ballot before 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which translates to 8:59 p.m. here on the West Coast, October the 15th, 2021.